I hope everyone is well today. We're going to be talking about references and in-text citations and how they're going to be used in your research proposal. Keep in mind that how we use references and in-text citations will be important when you create your poster and your research article next fall, so make sure you pay attention. So, introduction and the background was something we started talking about in the last set of videos. In a research proposal, the introduction section is supposed to awaken the reader's interest. You want to relay the importance of your proposed work. You're trying to make a case for your research, and you're trying to support your argument. So good references are going to help support your argument and make your case for your proposal. So what type of references should you use? You should try to select the most relevant references. These could be peer-reviewed journal articles, review articles, textbooks, maybe even websites. Some of the .org websites like EPA.org and CDC.org are great sources. You also want to keep in mind to choose quality sources over quantity. You don't need to have 30, 40, 50 references. So how many references should you use? Well, for this research proposal, I expect a minimum of 5 references. Hopefully, your mentor will get you started with a few. If you haven't already received any from them, now is the time to contact them and ask them for a couple of references related to your research project. You can use the search engines and databases that we talked about last semester, Google Scholar or PubMed. And you can also reference mine. Reference mining from sources that you already have is a great way to get new references. So if you have a review article and you notice there's a couple of references within that article that are used often and they seem really important to your project, well, maybe those are references that you should read the whole article. So, find the citation and obtain that full text article. And if you read these papers, you can add it as a source to your research proposal also. So, which references should you use? You want to include the ones that had guided the development of the field. And since you're new to your field, you may not know which ones have guided its development, but hopefully your mentor can point you in the right direction. Or you might notice, again, as you're reading articles, some of the references are going to be referred to over and over again, and those are probably the ones that have guided your field. You might want to include new references that are directly related to your questions, and by new I mean recently published within the past year or two. Most references should be less than 10 years old unless it's an important reference to your field. Is it okay to include conflicting or controversial references? Yes, you can include conflicting references so you can be seen to consider both sides of the argument. How do you manage your references? When you start writing your research proposal, you want a way to easily incorporate those references as in-text citations and create that bibliography at the end of your paper. And in the toolbar of Word, there is a tab, and it's called the Reference tab. And this is a great toolbar to help you manage your references. There's a button called Manage Sources. This allows you to add references to a growing bibliography. It allows you to insert citations. And when you click on the Insert Citation button, it allows you to add the in-text citation as a placeholder while you're writing. And then it also will format all your in-text citations and create a formatted reference list at the end of your paper. There is another video I've created on how to use this toolbar within Word. So I strongly encourage you to look at that video. There are also other programs that work with Word as an add-in, such as EndNote or RefWorks. They allow you to create a personal searchable database from multiple resources. They can create the formatted bibliographies at the end of your papers. It also helps you develop lists of cited papers as footnotes or endnotes. You may not have access to EndNote or RefWorks, and I don't require you to go out and purchase it. So maybe your parents have a copy of it and you could use it, and I can teach you how to use it, but I want you to realize these programs are available, but you may not have access to them right now. Let's talk a little more about in-text citations. In-text citations are an abbreviated form of your reference. They're placed within the text of your paper, and they're used when you refer to, summarize, paraphrase, or quote from another source. They refer to a list of references called the references cited or literature cited that is at the end of your paper. For every unique in-text citation in your paper, there must be a corresponding reference in your reference list. Footnotes and endnotes are not used commonly in a scientific paper for the references. So this is a big change from what you've probably done previously in your history class and your English classes. You've probably used footnotes and endnotes, and you haven't probably not used in-text citations, but we are going to use in-text citations within this club course. A little bit more about in-text citations. There's a couple common forms of in-text citation systems. There's an author year form, and then there's the citation sequence form. So the author year is what it sounds like. You have the author's last name, comma, the year of publication, as seen in this example. As previously reported, open parentheses, Sakash, comma, 1999, close parentheses, followed by a period. Note that where it's placed within the text is very important. There's always a space between the last word of the sentence and the opening parentheses, and the period of the sentence follows right after the close parenthesis. For the citation sequence, you're using a number. You are just putting a number that refers to the citation that you used. And as you can see here, we have, as described in an earlier report, open parentheses, for, close parentheses, period. And that for refers to reference number 4 in your bibliography list. Again, pay attention to the spacing. There is one space between the word and the open parentheses of your in-text citation, and the period comes right after the close parentheses of the in-text citation. The form of the in-text citation system that you use determines the order of references at the end of your paper. Now, typically, when you're writing a research paper or a research proposal, there's instructions to the authors. And in the instructions to the authors, there are specific directions on how the citations and the reference list must be formatted. So just like if you were submitting this proposal to a real granting agency or a journal, I want you to follow directions and create the citations and the reference formatting as I ask. So we are going to use the citation sequence form, which is the AAAS form for our in-text citations and our reference list. And on the portal, there is a link to Scientific Style and Formatting Guide, and this will show you how all these references should be formatted. Here's a quick example of the citation sequence. So citation sequence uses numbers within the text to refer to the end references. It organizes the end references in order of appearance within the text. So that's the sequence part of the citation sequence formatting. The same number is used for subsequent in-text references referring to the same document. So our example, here's a little introduction paragraph. The hallmark of allosteric regulation of enzymatic activity is the ability of the enzyme to exist in at least two different forms. Open parentheses, 1, close parentheses. So that's your in-text citation. That number 1, if you were to look at your reference list, refers to reference number 1, Monod, Wyman, and Shenzhou, published in 1965. As we move on through the introduction, our next sentence, on the functional level, these two forms of the enzyme differ in catalytic activity and/or substrate affinity. Open parentheses, 2, close parentheses. There's your second in-text citation. It refers to the second reference, Perutz, 1989, in your reference list. And so the references are not listed alphabetically. They're listed in order of appearance within the text. So when and how do we use references in a scientific paper? So this is a little bit more challenging, deciding when do you place the reference within your text. So I've had a couple of different examples to show you maybe not the best ways of going about this, and at the end there is a better way of going about it. So if we look at the first example, air pollution affects plants in a variety of ways. Browner and Bowles, 1994, Kramer and Berger, 2001, Smith and White, 2003, Pierce and Omer, 1999, McPhee et al., 2006. This isn't the best way to do references because there are too many references related to a vague statement. So the variety of ways. Ways is vague. You don't know what these ways are, and you just have this list of references. You should really list the ways. That would be a better way to go about writing this sentence, and then after each different way, then you would put the individual citation. The next example, air pollution affects plants in a variety of ways. For example, Smith and White, 2003. This suggests a review article, since there's only one citation. But if this article contains one way in which air pollution affects plants, then it's inappropriate. You really want to make sure that whatever your source is, it really does describe numerous ways. Our next example, air pollution affects plants by reducing foliage, reducing total plant mass, decreasing fruit yields, and shortened lifespans, but root development has not been studied. Browner and Bowles, 1994, Kramer and Berger, 2001, Pierce and Omer, 1999, McPhee et al., 2006. Again, this is not the best way to cite your references because placing the references at the end of the sentence suggests that all the references indicate that root development has not been studied. But these references might actually refer to the different ways: reducing foliage, total plant mass, decreasing fruit yields, but we don't know that because of where it's been placed within the sentence. So a better way to phrase the sentence and insert the references is this last example. Air pollution affects plants by reducing foliage, Browner and Bowles, 1994, reducing total plant mass, Kramer and Berger, 2001, decreasing fruit yields, Pierce and Omer, 1999, and shortened lifespans, McPhee et al., 2006, but root development has not been studied. Here we've placed the references after the topic that each reference corresponds to. This is just right. This is how you would want to list your references within the text so you can see the specific reference and what it's referring to. So hopefully this gives you a nice overview of in-text citations and how they're used. Definitely go look at the other video on using the reference tab in Word to see how we physically do this as you're writing your paper.